Good morning to you. This is Angela with Parkrose Permaculture. If you are new to my channel, I am a permaculture food forester in Portland, Oregon. This food forest here on my property is 11 years old. I have 1/4 acre. It's not a ton of space, but I am in the city and I make it work. So I have over 40 fruit trees and loads and loads of berry bushes. If you're not new to my channel, if you were trying to watch my daily video yesterday, you'll notice that there wasn't one, and I want to apologize. I'm really upset about it. I made a video and I thought that it uploaded properly to YouTube, and because I needed to make space on my phone after filming and editing and splicing and uploading, I deleted it off my camera permanently, only to discover it didn't upload correctly to YouTube, and I lost it. So I'm really, really bummed out. I keep getting requests for how do I utilize all of the fruit here. And so I made a video. See, I'm really sad about it. I made a video talking about how I make liqueurs. So I make a lot of liqueur for gifts, but also just for me. So this is black currant liqueur. And so in my video yesterday, I was showing y'all how to make it out of gummy berries and black currants and marionberries and plums, and I lost it. And I just didn't have the energy to redo that today because I'm just feeling really sad about it. But I will come back. I promise I'll show you how I do it, because it is a way to utilize some of your harvest besides fruit leather and drying fruits. I have a solar dehydrator, and I'm going to make a video showing y'all how I dry fruits and veg and flowers and that later in the summer. And a way besides making jams and jellies and freezing, other ways to preserve. And I like to make melomels, which are fruited meads, and I like to make liqueurs. So I will get back to that. And I'm sorry that I lost that. I know y'all have been asking, how do I preserve my fruit? So instead, because I was making black currant liqueur yesterday, I wanted to talk to you all about growing currants. So folks ask me quite a bit if I could talk about growing currants, and I haven't made a video yet. So I talk in a lot of my videos where I'm focusing on a different plant or a guild. I mention my currants. So you can see there's one here. That's a black currant. And I grow 4 different kinds of European currants. I grow red, white, and pink, which is a hybrid of red and white, and I grow black currants. And I don't know the names of any of those varieties. So I want to apologize. I don't know, because I get my plants as cuttings, or I get them free off Craigslist, folks who put in currants and don't realize how big they can get. So if you want to root a currant, they're very easy to root. You just take a branch and you pull off, let me show here. So you have a currant branch and you just pull off the bottom leaves, and you want that hardwood. You don't want the real green floppy wood. And you pull off the leaves, and you don't even have to bruise the bottom, but you can if you want. You can kind of take your fingernail and bruise it, and you just stick it in the ground about that far. And in a couple of months, you will have roots and you'll have a new plant. So it's very, very easy to propagate. So one of the problems with propagating your currants this way, I leave a couple of leaves on the top, like 2 or 3, so I'd take these off too. Just leave a couple leaves. So the problem with propagating your currants this way, or not with propagating them that way, the problem with that proclivity they have to easily root is that when you throw down prunings, you can end up with them rooting laterally along here. You can end up with them rooting, and you end up with a thicket or a patch of currants you didn't want to have. So for me, if I am trimming them back when they are leafed out, I use them as bedding in the poultry houses, which is my go-to technique for how to deal with any prunings that like to reroot. If you use it as bedding in your duck house, it will not come back, promise you. And if I do it in the winter when it's dormant, I either save these and they make good kindling to start fires, or I chop them into little pieces and throw them in the path where they will be trampled enough that they won't reroot. I do occasionally get currants coming up where I don't want them, and they're pretty easy to pull up and give to a friend. So my white currants are done. White European currants, this is what the leaves look like. They are done for the year. So I have only one to show you that I found hanging on one branch. They're about this big. And they're much sweeter than a red currant and great for fresh eating. The pink currants are also good for fresh eating. Tart, but not overwhelmingly so. You don't have to cook them. But like I said, tail end of these, so that's the only one I could find to show you. It is the second half, I would say, of the red currant harvest. And here's my red currants. Red currants look like little gems. They're just such a beautiful, glowing fruit, incandescent fruit. You can see here, this is the end where the flower was. They have a little nubbin on the end, and they grow in these chains. So if you look at my Facebook or Instagram pictures from 5, 6, 7 years ago, or my Facebook pictures from albums, or my website from 8, 9 years ago, you will see ridiculous currant harvests. I mean, buckets and buckets off my plants. Currants were, if you'd asked me 8 years ago, what is your go-to when you were putting in a fruit tree guild? What is your go-to shrub layer that's a fruit producer? I would have said a currant, because not much bothered them, and they produced tons of fruit with very little effort, and they also produce in partial to full shade. Particularly the white currants I find produce very well in full shade. So I don't say that anymore. And I have removed a significant portion of my currants. And this is why I want to make this video, because of the questions I get about growing currants. So I do still grow pink, white, red currants, and I grow black currants. You can see here, I just picked them. It is right at the prime of black currant season here. And then I also grow the native crandall currant, which you can see looks like this. And it is not really ripe yet. You can see most of the fruit are still green. So I want to honor the request that so many folks have made, leaving comments or messaging me. I'm having trouble with my currants. Can you please help me? So yes, here's the problems that you're most likely to get on your currants, and here's how I feel you should deal with them. So number one is a problem I started getting a few years into growing currants, and it looks like this. Gonna crank down here, sorry about that. It looks like this. You get blisters on your leaves of your currants, and it does not impact the fruit at all, but it does weaken the plant. People often think like, oh, this must be some kind of fungus. What is happening? It looks all blistery. This is the blister aphid. So if you flip the leaf over and you look underneath, there are very, very small green aphids, and I don't know if they'll show up on the camera. There we go. Very, very small green aphids, and as they suck the juice from the plant, they weaken and damage the tissue. So what's the treatment for these? Again, they don't impact the fruit, but they do weaken the plant, and I feel like overall it may be more prone to diseases because of this pest infestation. You can use soapy water, you can use neem oil. If you're going to use a detergent kind of soap, please use it after dark. Also bring in the ladybugs. My currants often have ladybugs on them. Now, sometimes this produces a reddish color on the front of the leaf. I don't know if I have any that look like that, but if you see that kind of blistering look and part of the leaf takes a red hue, oh, here's one. Let me show you. This bright red hue, this one was sitting in the sun, so it's a little droopy. This is still the blister aphid. It can change the color. So that's not a fungal disease, that's an insect. Okay, soapy water, ladybugs, those are your two key cures for that. Okay, second problem, moving on. These are gonna be big problems. Okay, so I would say combined, the next two problems reduce my red, pink, and white currant harvest by 50%. It's that much of a problem. And my black currant harvest by 10%. It's a big problem. Okay. So normally you get a chain of currants, and these are all beautiful and not impacted in any way, shape, or form. Except for the one on the very end, and that's the one I want to show you. So you have this beautiful little berry. Again, this is the blossom end. And then on the side of it, oh, we have a little black spot. So you have that little black spot. That's our problem right there. There is a maggot in there. And that maggot is from the gooseberry maggot, also sometimes called the currant fruit fly or the gooseberry fruit fly. It is in the genus Euphranta. What do you do for this maggot? It really, nobody wants to eat maggoty fruit. Now you can still technically cook these and make jelly. And also you can make liqueurs out of them, the infected fruit. You will kill the maggot and it won't hurt you, and you aren't going to eat the whole fruit. You're going to crush and strain for jam and jelly, excuse me, and you can just discard the berries after you make the liqueur. So it is still possible to use to some extent, but the problem is you get fruit that won't ever ripen. So here's that solo white currant I have left. Look at right there. There we go. There's our problem. This one has been infected 3 times, which is unusual. You're more likely to see one hole. There is the blossom end. So these white currants, which were once great for fresh eating, nobody wants to eat a maggot. Okay. So I have read that the gooseberry fruit fly is sensitive to rosemary, and that if you spray diluted rosemary essential oil on your plants, it can reduce the infestation rate. I've also read that growing rosemary near them can help reduce it. If you're going to spray rosemary essential oil on your plants, please dilute it and please spray it after dark when you're not going to potentially spray pollinators. So I will also say for this pest and the next one I'm going to mention, there are no insecticides approved for the gooseberry maggot or the next one I'm going to talk about that are okay for bees. All of them are extremely toxic for bees. So I don't care what anybody recommends to you. If you read the list of approved pesticides for these, they're all very bad for pollinators. Please don't use them. Please look for a permaculture solution. So in permaculture, we observe and interact, and we design from patterns to detail. So we look to nature for cues. We don't come in and say our only option is to apply an insecticide. We are more creative than that. We want to have our focus be narrow on dealing with the issue that is impacting our currant bushes, and we don't want to have negative side effects. So we don't want to be inadvertently damaging other beneficial insect populations in the area. So in permaculture design, we don't just come in with an insecticide and drop it, right? Like that's a real bad idea, and I think you'll regret it. Also, again, a number of these insecticides that are useful against various fruit fly species are really toxic to fish, and if they get in the waterway, they're very bad for fish. So please don't use them. Okay, so let's see if I can find. So again, I said about 10% of my black currants end up being infected, and I want to show you what they look like. So when you pick your currants, it signals to any of the fruit fly larvae still left that they've fallen to the ground, and then they try and come out of the fruit. So this is what they look like when they're coming out. Gross. And I find the ones that feed on black currants tend to be stained pink. The ones in my other currants are very white. I am not squeamish, but I don't like maggots. Blah. Okay, so this puppy will get fed to the chickens. So if we're looking at biological controls, chickens are a good macro biological control. Oh, I'm going to pick these guys up and show you. And they will eat all of these infected fruit. So if you are thinking about a way to deal with maggots, you can grow your currants in your chicken yard and let the chickens clean up. Yuck. Okay. Again, I'm not one to say yuck, but like this is a problem that has devastated my current crop. So next, moving on. This was something that got introduced, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, and everybody in Oregon and Washington freaked out because we did not have this pest before, and it has devastated more than just currants, but man, they love currants, and that is the spotted wing drosophila, which can infest stone fruit as well. Drosophila Suzukii. If you have taken college biology, I'm sure you have read lots of studies or done experiments using Drosophila melanogaster. This is in the same genus, except has little dark spots on the end of its wings, and you can differentiate it from other fruit flies very easily when it lands on something. It's very obvious what it is. I have seen them in my garden. They also lay their eggs and ruin your fruit. So, again, none of the insecticides on the market for for Euphranta or for Drosophila are going to be friendly for bees. They're all toxic to bees, many of them neurologically toxic. And again, some of them for fish. Please don't use them. So what can we do? What are our options? Okay, first option is, again, grow them in your chicken yard. Let the chickens clean up the infected fruit and break the life cycle. So those maggots are going to go down on the ground, and you're going to get an overwintering cycle. And you want to prevent that. Okay, so cleaning up infected fruit off the ground is really important. So grow them in your poultry yard. I found that chickens really like currant berries much more than ducks. Although my ducks will eat gooseberries and the white currants, they don't like the black or the red as much. Okay, second option is if you don't have a chicken yard, you can do something which may seem not very permaculture-y, but we tend to grow in permaculture our plants in polyculture, right? We are mixing lots of things together. So for me, I grow nothing in isolation. I don't have any grass, so I can't grow something in the middle of a lawn, and I don't grow a single plant just surrounded by mulch. Everything is mixed plantings called guilds where plants are supporting each other. And I'm a big fan of green living plants to act as living manure, living mulch, right? So I grow things for chop and drop. I grow things for ground cover. Nothing is grown in isolation. So if you look at my currant here, underneath it on the ground, I have hebes and crocosmia and yarrow and multiple kinds of herbs. And if you don't have that, or you are willing to sacrifice that polyculture, instead of having those low-lying plants under your currant, if you just put down cardboard as mulch or a tarp, like an old sheet, and you do it for part of the season when your currant is dropping those infected berries, and then you can actually assist this along by shaking, so taking the plant and shaking it. Any of the infected berries that fall, you pick up the cardboard or you fold up your sheet and you destroy them. And that keeps them from overwintering, and that helps break the cycle. It's just like in the apple orchard, you clean up the fallen fruit, and that disrupts their life cycle for both the Drosophila and for the Euphranta, okay? Okay, second to last option. You can net these using mosquito netting or netting that is designed for keeping out fruit flies. I will be doing this next year. I am tired of losing 50% of my berries. So I'm going to test run it on one. So I'm going to get 4 nets, and I'm going to test run it on one each of my European currants and see if I get a better production. So as soon as the fruit is set, it's very, very tiny and green and hard, net it. Keep the fruit flies off. For me, I miss having an endless supply of currants, and I'm tired of putting up with this pest. So I'm going to try that. Mechanical solutions in permaculture, slow, small solutions. A mechanical solution like a mosquito net or a fruit fly net is only going as far as that one plant. An insecticide is a solution. You can't control the spread of it, right? The wind will carry it. Insects will travel into it and interact with it and then take it back to their home. It is much more difficult to control. It is not a small solution, and I don't think it's a solution at all. I'm going to try the netting next year, and I will do an update and let you know how that goes. Okay. Last one is you can make traps, just like you make coddling moth traps. A little cup where they can fall in and can't get out that has either yeast, sugar, water, and dish soap, or molasses, vinegar, water, dish soap. And make a little trap, and you will catch a percentage of them and reduce the pressure. You will also probably catch coddling moths in the same trap. Sometimes I catch yellow jackets. I don't catch bees in those traps. Okay. One more problem. We've gone over blister aphid. the gooseberry maggot, the spotted wing drosophila, and the last one is called a sawfly larva, Nematis ribesii. It is not a fly. It is in the Hymenoptera, which is the same family as ants and wasps. So the larvae are ones that eat the leaves. And people get real freaked out about these because they can strip a bush in a matter of days, completely denude it. Like, you will have no leaves left and that plant will not make it. Or it will drop all of its immature fruit and try and recover its energy by making more leaves to photosynthesize. It's really damaging. Okay, but this is a very easy one to control, and I don't find it a problem. If you knock them off the plant, they can't get back up. It literally requires taking the stem and shaking it or spraying the bush with a hose, and they don't come back up. And the chickens love to eat them. So I've had sawflies. I find they are more likely to impact my gooseberries and my jostaberry, which I removed actually. So sometimes pronounced jostaberry. It is a hybrid between a gooseberry and two currants, an American and a European currant. I don't grow it anymore because the berries are actually not unlike the crandall currant, which is the native currant. They're shiny and big and look a little bit like a black gooseberry, but they're bigger than this. But I don't think the flavor is that much better than the native crandall currant. And the downside of growing jostaberry is that they have hybrid vigor. The plant is enormous. However big your gooseberries or your biggest, this is my biggest currant. My black currants tend to be bigger than my reds. However big those are, your jostaberry is going to be, I had one that was like 7.5 feet tall and the spread was like 10 feet wide, huge. Most people in a suburban or urban garden do not have room for them. Now, if you live in the country and you want to have a hedge, put that plant in your hedgerow. The fruit's tasty, it just is not right for my garden. And I find it is more prone to sawfly than my currants are. But again, sawfly, easy mechanical way to get rid of it. You don't have to spray that with insecticide. Just spray it with a hose. Knock them on the ground, they can't get back up. Okay, so that is a look at my currants, the problems I am facing, and I hope that answers for you all. If those are problems you all are facing too, I hope that gives you some tips on what's going on with your plants and how to deal with it, with the blister aphids, with the gooseberry maggot, with the drosophila maggots, and with the sawflies. And I am definitely going to keep you all updated. Next year I will make a video showing what happens when I net them and see if I get better success, because currants are just a wonderful, delicious, unique fruit with high vitamin C, and gosh, nothing tastes like a black currant, and they're so easy to harvest. So if we can get a control on some of these introduced pests that have been impacting us the last few years, hopefully we can get back to having these be an easy, reliable crop in the permaculture garden. So I will be back with my garden tour later this weekend, and I hope you all stay safe. Thanks.